go again, another episode.
Yes, mate, yeah, and I'm really happy today because this is about another big fella's loser, which we'll come on to in a second. But first of all, mate, how's your week been?
Week's been good, mate. Busy night on Monday with Man v Fat, playing a bit of football. We won 3-0, happy days.
Yeah.
And then, other than that, trying to balance a podcast and a full-time job. It's hard work at the minute, but we're making it work.
It is, mate, isn't it? And, so we drew 1-1 this week.
Yeah.
And then we drew off the pitch as well, so not much to report there.
Yeah.
But, again, thoroughly enjoyed it. And, mate, it's good. It's a good workout. And the other thing is I now also play later in the week, but that's at Power League. So it's just, it's the Man v Fat community that have gone off. And I really enjoy that. That's an hour playing. It's some of the best players for Man v Fat are there, including myself. It's a tough hour, but it's enjoyable, so it's good. It's more calories burnt, more importantly.
Cool. What have you been up to this week other than playing football?
So I manage football as well, mate. I manage an under-sevens team, so hopefully next year they might be sponsored by big fellas, who knows?
Really?
Football is pretty much my life, and then obviously professionally I do podcasts and videography and stuff. So, mate, it's busy. It's all over the place. It's life.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've been doing a bit of work behind the scenes as well. We saw a supplement company this week as well, didn't we?
We did, mate. So we got invited in, didn't we, by their managing director, who was fantastic. We went and sampled some of their products. I've been using some of their products now for a few years. They're not not very well known. They're a relatively big business, but they're bigger in Europe than they are the UK. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
So we haven't formed a partnership with them yet, but I am a big fan of their products. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, no, I like them. They're great people. The products are great. You can see the benefits they bring, and hopefully in the coming weeks we'll have more to share on that. And I think let's not get ahead of ourselves, but there's something. There'll probably be something to talk about in the next few weeks, I hope.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're listening at home, I'd like to know what you think. Do you take things like whey protein? Do you take vitamins and supplements? And if so, would you like us to try and get someone on, and maybe a scientist or something like that from this company to talk about what they do and the impacts they have on your body and why they're important to take, or are they? Can you cover that with a nutritious diet?
Yeah.
One of the things I loved about this, and it got me thinking and comparing, is they put a lot of vitamins within their whey, which actually is kind of a good ways of going. So it's almost like when you're taking your, say, chocolate whey and you're making a smoothie, you're adding some nutrition into that as well, some essential vitamins. Yeah, you're giving the body the extra bits that no doubt it needs. But yeah, let's see how that goes. It's early days with that, but first impressions certainly very good. Yeah. The week has been busy, mate, but let's talk about our podcast today. So who have we got on? Yeah, so we have a big loser today. And like I said, we want to celebrate losers. This is the podcast for losers, and we want to celebrate them. Losers podcast. Yeah. Well, he supports Spurs, so he's used to being a loser, this one. So yeah, but at least they're Premier League. But no, he's a mate of mine. This is Chris Checketts. I've known Chris for about 3 years now, and we met through our dogs, of all things. I am a proud owner of a boxer, as is Chris. My boxer's called Betty. He's got a boy called Bailey, and that was Betty's first boyfriend. This isn't a dog dating podcast. I should put that out there. No, Chris is a good lad, and he's a bit like me. He's probably had his ups and downs with his weight. He's tried lots of different things, but it seems to have really stuck this time, and he's really made a big change in his weight and his lifestyle. And I think, it'd be great to hear what he's got to say. And I'm really excited for this one. Cool. Well, let's get into it, mate. Let's do it. And so here is Chris Checketts, my fellow boxer lover and football fan. How are you doing, mate?
I'm not too bad, thanks. The dog's okay as well. How are you guys getting on?
Yeah, we're all good. And Betty, my boxer, full of the joys of spring, as she always is.
Yeah, Bailey's my boxer, and Betty was like his first sort of girlfriend, really. But, yeah, it's years ago now.
So, Chris, nice to meet you, mate. Let's jump straight in, shall we? So, tell us where you were a year ago, mate, with your weight loss journey.
I'll start with some hard facts. I suppose a year ago I was around 108 kilos, so a lot heavier than I am now. So I'm sort of around 80ish now. So where was I in my journey? Nowhere really, to be honest. At my heaviest, I was a lot bigger than that, around 130, and I'd gone through. I think one thing that probably everybody in this does have in common here, if you've lost weight, is that we've probably all been through 1,000,001 different things that we've failed at, right? So I've done almost everything that you can think of, including things that have worked well for others. Like I know Mark's spoken about the Cambridge stuff didn't work for me. I've also done quite extreme things, gastric balloons, nasal tubes down your nose that feed you from a motor on your back so you don't eat. And honestly, there's probably nothing that I haven't done and hadn't worked. So yeah, a year ago, I was overweight, not doing any exercise, not really wanting to do anything about it, to be honest.
Yeah. And that, yeah, it's kind of like a bit of a vicious circle, isn't it? It's quite a depressing place to be. Would you agree?
It is. I got used to it though, I just accepted it really. I've been overweight for a long time. One of my best mates has got history like being a personal trainer, run gyms and all that kind of stuff. He'd always encourage me, and it got to the point where he would say to me, I'm genuinely worried about your health. Even that wasn't enough. Even that wasn't enough for me. I was still like, just not motivated in any way. I just couldn't be bothered. I'd just rather sit on the sofa and watch EastEnders than the prospect of, and then stuff myself with all kinds of terrible food while I'm doing it, right? The prospect of doing anything about it. I think I'd given up, if I'm honest, at that stage.
Yeah. And so where are you now then, Chris? So you kind of briefly mentioned it.
Yeah, so a little bit lighter. Yeah, this year's been amazing for me. I'll be honest, I'm not even sure at the start of it that I really believed myself that I'd be able to lose weight, because how many times have probably most of us been there? We're like, no, I'm going to do something about it this time. And so I decided that I would. And there is a reason for that, right? Maybe that's the difference, is trying to find that motivating factor that suddenly actually makes you stick to something. Like I was an expert at sticking for something for 2 or 3 days and then not bothering. Imagine we've all probably been there. So for me, basically, it was another one of my friends getting married in April of next year, 2025, in Cyprus, and he invited me. There was not many people going, so I was quite chuffed about that. And I just didn't want to be huge for those pictures, because going back a few years before, 7, 8 years, another one of my friends got married and I was big. And every time I go around their house, there's pictures of me like I'm ready for hibernation for the winter. Right, my cheeks are out here. I can't stand that picture of me, or those pictures, and the prospect of having that again with another one of my friends. I just couldn't. I couldn't face that, and that seemed to be the thing that spurred me on to, right, let's do something about it. Like I said, when I decided to, I'm not 100% convinced that I thought I was going to achieve something, but for some reason it's worked this year. So I'm sure we'll get into how I've done that or what's worked for me. But yeah, this year's gone really well. I'm a lot thinner, a lot fitter, just healthier generally.
Fantastic. So how much do you weigh now then, roughly? Don't have to be precise.
I think I might put up a couple of kilos on the last couple of weeks, but I'm about 80 kilos, about 12.5 stone at the moment.
Fantastic. So,
and how tall are you, Chris? Sorry?
Just for context.
5'11".
5'11". So, yeah, so that is healthy BMI weight now, yeah? And,
yeah, it took me a long time to get into that. I mean, I'm sure you cover elsewhere that BMI is just a measure, right? It's not the best measure in the world, but it's still a measure.
Yeah.
So that was nice to see that go into the healthy range. I couldn't even tell you the last time I was in a healthy BMI range. Probably when I was at school, maybe. It's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. So going on from that then, Chris, you said you were at school. What was your childhood like, mate? Was weight an issue as a child growing up?
Not for me. Not really. It's one of the things that struck me. Mark and I had a chat a few weeks ago, and how different our journeys were. Right? I know in a previous episode he's talked about, remembering things from a really young age that stuck with you about, being teased about weight. Not for me. I was like a bit of a beanpole at school, to be honest. Just played so much football that it was never an issue. So that wasn't the start of it at all for me. I think as I got older, there's no trigger. There's no one point where no traumatic event for me or anything like that. It's just getting older and lazier, and you learn to drive and you stop walking so much and all of that kind of stuff. And generally liking food, not being very disciplined around food. And then probably in the latter years as well, I used to be really active in football, not so much in the last few years since I kind of retired. And yeah, it's just got worse and worse, really. So yeah, I've always been overweight in my adult life, pretty much. But yeah, nothing. Childhood was absolutely fine. I couldn't, no complaints whatsoever.
So when did you start noticing weight being a problem then?
What? I suppose if you go back to sort of university and things like that, I was always the person who from then, even when I was younger, I suppose, I turned to food for any reason, whether I was sad, whether I was happy. Like, it was like, all right, let's go out for a meal. Or if you're sad, it's like, I'll just stuff myself with some kind of sugar or something just to make myself feel better. So I always spent my spare money not on going out and getting, completely off your face like a lot of people do at university. I was spending money on Ben and Jerry's and stuff like that. So I think it was a gradual thing from that point that I just put weight on ever from then, really. So at university, I was probably just beginning to start to put weight on. And then after that, it just kind of carried on, really, to the point that, yeah, my biggest, I was about 131 and a half, I think was the biggest I ever weighed in at. It's about 21 stone-ish. So that was about 7-8 years ago. That was, yeah, that was pretty bad.
And so, obviously, with that, you've tried different methods to lose weight in that time. You gained weight, like say 7-8 years ago. Let's start there. So it's 7-8 years ago. You're at your absolute peak of your weight. Yeah. What did you do then, and how did you sort of manage it?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose my efforts. I don't think it comes as a shock to anyone who's that big that you're overweight, right? I knew that. You always want to not be so big. Did I really want to be super thin? No, it wasn't really that. I just didn't want to be very big, and I was very big. But my efforts were always half-hearted. They were always they were faddish. I think is that the right way of putting it? Like, yeah, I've gone on the juice diets. I've gone on the cabbage soup diets. I've got almost anything. I'm sure you guys will relate to a lot of this. Probably done half of these yourself. But I guess one of the things we'll come on to what's worked for me is when you're doing those sort of things, for me personally, they're so restrictive that I kind of feel like I'm doomed to failure, because you can't carry on doing just juices or cabbage soup forever. There comes a point where you just get sick of it, right? And so I'd have some short-term success, but ultimately you can't, it's not sustainable. So I just then end up going back to, well, I can't do cabbage soup, I can't do the juices, whatever it was, and then just go back to eating the way I was eating before. Weight comes back on again. Just a never-ending cycle, that, isn't it, really? So that's what was going on back then.
Okay. And so then what then happened after that? So at 21 stone, you then came down a bit. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a bit up and down. I suppose one thing, I said there was no traumatic event. One thing that's sticks in my mind, I suppose, was my dad passed away 2018. And on the back of that, I had a few other issues in my life that just put me in a really bad place mentally. And so trying to come out of that, I was trying to do everything to be mentally healthier, but also physically healthier. So, yeah, one of the things I did, that was when I was doing gastric balloons and all sorts. I had bariatric surgery as well. I went in for a sleeve gastrectomy, which worked to some extent, but didn't get me to where I am now, which I think, again, it's just interesting comparing stories, isn't it, where that will have worked really well for some people. It did for me to a point, but that's kind of what was going on, really. There was a lot, mental health and physical health, I think, as well, go hand in hand a lot, don't they? And I just wasn't in the right place. On the back of all of that, I was very low. So I was trying to do all of these different things in desperation, using what little inheritance money I had on things like gastric surgery and stuff. But, you know,
I can
just trying desperately to get something that worked.
Yeah, I can massively relate to that. So, you know, I've had gastric surgery as well, and it has worked quite well for me. But one of the things that I think a lot of people don't understand, if you've never sort of looked into it, is that it's going to help you lose so much body weight, but it's not like a permanent cheat code where you can just get away with eating whatever you want. You can just, your meals will just be smaller. That's essentially what it comes down to. So if you fill your meals up with chocolate and, you know, bad stuff, then you're still going to put on weight, right? It's just there to sort of, certainly with me, because like yourself, I was suffering mentally, physically. I was in a really bad way, and the doctor had told me I need to lose weight realistically if I want to see my kids, you know, live into adulthood. And yeah, it serves its purpose. And did it take you from sort of that 20 something stone back down to around about 100 kilos mark, which I think is where you said?
Yeah, almost exactly, actually. So I think when I vaguely remember when I had the surgery, I was about 125, I think, at the time I had the surgery. And then at the back of that, so a sleeve gastrectomy, for anyone who doesn't know, essentially, it's nothing. It's not like a band or anything like that. It's basically just making your stomach smaller, essentially, right? Cutting away a lot of your stomach. I just physically couldn't eat as much. So inevitably, I lost weight. And I got down to about 97 kilos, I think. And that was what, 4 years ago. And then from there, just slowly began to creep back on a little bit, to the point where I got to the start of this year at 108.
Yeah, and I think that's quite common as well for that sort of procedure, isn't it? It's that when you start to eat normally again, and as you recover, ultimately I think weight loss is got, and this is like a common theme that we come across, it's got to be a lifestyle change. If you want to be fit and healthy, you have to do something long term. It doesn't matter whether you do, like you say, a juice diet where you can do it for so long, but then all of a sudden you come off it, it's going to come back. You have to do something for the longer term. So that sort of hopefully brings us quite nicely on to the start of this year then, mate.
So you get to the start of this year, Chris. What was different this time? What made you make the lifestyle change, so to speak?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before about my mate getting married, right, and avoiding that kind of, those pictures of me being huge. And I fully endorse what you guys just said about it being a lifestyle change. But why it's worked for me, I think, this year, as opposed to any other year, is just to kind of, it does have to be a lifestyle change, but that feels so intimidating to me, right? You're a big guy, you're used to eating loads of food, whatever you want, whenever you want. You don't do much exercise, just go and change your whole lifestyle forever. I'm like, wow, that is like, how am I going to do that? Almost feels like I'm going to fail before I've even started, right? So I totally agree with that. It's much easier for me to look back on that in hindsight now and go, yeah, no, I've changed my whole lifestyle. So why did it work for me? Possibly it's just about, what can you do that you can accept within your life without it being a big deal? That's what it was for me. So for me, I was eating a lot of sugary foods, right? Cakes, sweets, biscuits, whatever. And as much as I ate a load of those, I didn't really feel like I was addicted to it or massively needed it. And that was my first point. It was like, you know what? I think I can give these up and not be desperately unhappy. And so that's how it started. All I was like, right, I'm not going to eat this stuff. And I did cut out as well, sort of the big carb groups when I was first starting. So I wasn't eating any pastas or rice or bread or stuff like that. So the best I can say to people is it was kind of like keto, really. I never massively restricted myself. I wasn't obsessive about anything. I didn't weigh things or measure. I just like, right, I'm going to cut all of these things out. and just adapted from there. I set myself some targets. So I wanted to get to 90 kilos by my friend's wedding, which is April next year. But I didn't want it to be aggressive targets. Again, having spoken to you, Mark, I know you kind of value that, checking in with your sort of Cambridge person who will then probably weigh you and you'll assess. That's accountability, right? For me personally, that would risk demotivating me. I.e., let's say I set myself a goal of I want to lose a stone in a month. Week 1, I haven't lost any weight. I'm now like, well, now I've got to lose a stone in 3 weeks. And that, for me, that's quite intimidating. I don't like that. I probably thought I did and tried to do that in the past. So this year, I just set myself a goal. 18 kilograms is a lot, from 108 to 90. But I've given myself a year and 3 months to try and do it in. And that worked really well. Lack of pressure. Just started really slowly with things that I can change in my diet. And I began to make a little bit of progress. And then once I've done that, well, actually, I can do a bit more here. I can improve my diet a bit more without it being too much of a restrictive in any way. I don't like, if I had to go and eat salads every mealtime, I'd never stick to it in a million years. So keto, I've changed it a lot as I go along. I'm not still doing that, but there were times where I was just eating a lot of sort of sausages and burgers and cheese and things, which is not nutritionally the best advice that anyone can give you. But at that moment in time, it was better than what I was doing before. And it just helped the ball start rolling a little bit. And then I can improve from there, rather than right from the off. You've got to do a massive lifestyle change right now. Just change a little bit. That worked. All right, maybe I can change a bit more. And you get encouragement from that, right? You see the weight going off and you're like, actually, you want to start changing more. So I think that's a big part of why it's worked for me, really, is just not putting too much pressure on myself, really.
Awesome. And what role has exercise played in it for you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, that's the same principle, I would say. Like, the exercise I do now, if someone had come to me in January and said, this is what you've got to do, I wouldn't have lasted. I'd have failed. There's not a question. So to start with, I didn't do anything. I wasn't doing anything. And when I started the diet, I say diet, lifestyle change, whatever you want to call it, I wasn't doing exercise then either. So that changed when I woke up in the middle of the night once, and I don't know what was going on. Maybe lack of the sugars I was eating at the time maybe affected my brain function, because I was flicking through Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it about 4 o'clock in the morning when I woke up. And I just saw this advert for Cancer Research UK of a running challenge, which was run 62 miles in March, 2 miles a day. And I thought that sounds achievable. So I signed up for that at 4 in the morning, got up the next morning and thought, why did I do that? But I was already in it then by that stage. And then I was lucky, really. All my friends, family, my work colleagues massively supported me. I thought I might raise a couple of hundred quid. It got to 1,500 quid before I knew where I was. And I'm like, wow, I've really got to do this now. So that's how it started. That motivation was enough to get me through that challenge. I couldn't jog for more than a minute at the start. So it was very much jog, walk. But I got through that. And after that, come the end of March, I was a bit fitter. I know I'm inherently probably lazy as a person, I think. So I had to continually try and give myself, almost emotionally blackmail myself into reasons why I should carry on doing the exercise. So I signed up for a Tough Mudder in September. So that at that time, that was a while away. Again, a number of friends came along and joined me in that. So that was great. So I just wanted to do as well as I could in that. I started to do park runs as well and just down, I'm in Milton Keynes, so just down in the local lake. They jog around there. Couldn't jog for 5K at the start, but I just like kind of seeing my improvement. So all of those sort of things, just always giving myself a reason why I should carry on doing it. So I've got through the Tough Mudder. That was about 10 days ago. It does what it says on the tin, by the way. It's tough and it was muddy. I got through it. It was interesting, but it's such a sense of accomplishment at the end, right? It took me 3 hours, 15 minutes, but could I have done that in January? Not a chance. And now the next thing is I've signed up to the Brighton Half Marathon next year. So I'm going to run that for a mental health charity, and I've got a little bit involved with. So yeah, that's how it's worked for me exercise wise. And I just like keep going and trying to challenge myself, trying to do a personal best. I did another 5K. I'm still not brilliant, by the way, at the 5Ks. But I did yesterday, I went and did 31 minutes, which is my fastest yet. It's not amazing, but it's a lot better. Go back to March, I couldn't jog for a minute. And now I'm doing 5Ks in 31 minutes, doing 15K runs. I know I'm never going to be an athlete, but it's just trying to keep doing something, right? Just to keep up the momentum and not go back to where I was.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we all need to do is be kind to ourselves and recognize when you're doing well, how far you've come. Because I think, especially if, mental health is at play and stuff, one of the things that we do a lot very easy is beat ourselves up when things aren't going well. And yeah, like you say, tough muddlers are not easy. They're really, really hard. They're designed to be challenging. And yeah, did you get your medal and stuff like that as well?
Yeah. So all that's great, right? And then the week after, I don't know why I did this, but so that was 10 days ago. And last weekend just gone, I then signed up to do a 15K inflatable obstacle course. Because I'll be honest, I'm not a massive fan. 5Ks I can get my head around, it's half an hour. But like long distance running, it's just a bit boring for me. Again, whatever works for you as an individual. And that's another thing about exercise, right? I can't stand going to the gym and doing weights. I know I should. And my mate who's been a personal trainer is like, oh, this is the theory of how to do it, right? This is the best way you can do it. Fine, I understand that, and I probably will have to address this at some point in the next few months and get a bit better. But just starting doing something is better than doing nothing. So just getting out there, doing my little bits of running and whatever, it's so much, like you said, from where I've come from to that is an achievement. So whatever you can do, you might be the complete opposite of that as a person, right? You might hate running. I totally understand that. You might be able to get your head around going to the gym and doing the row machine, or you might want to do weights. Whatever works for you, just get out there and do something. Just start small. You'll see some differences pretty quickly, and then just build from there.
Oh, that's brilliant, mate. So yeah, the number on the scales is lower, so that's one change. And you're fitter. That's another change. Any other changes that you've noticed since losing the weight?
I think the biggest thing, funny because people say, oh, you must massively notice the difference. In some ways, that always makes me sit back and reflect and think, what difference do I notice? And I think perhaps why I struggle with the question a little is because I think I've been really lucky. I'm 44 now. I got to my mid 40s overweight without too much impact of that. But that wasn't going to last. But that said, what differences do I notice? One thing I massively have noticed is I don't mind pictures being taken of myself. So that's a nice thing. Like I look at myself in pictures, wherever it is. Some pictures like on my Facebook from when I went to Silverstone earlier in the year for the MotoGP. I've got a bit of a slightly unhealthy stalkerish hobby of going to follow all of these ex-footballers. So I go to a lot of those and have my pictures taken with ex-footballers. And I don't mind it. Like I look at it and think, all right, I'm no oil painting, but I look all right. And you compare it to those pictures. I talked about that wedding 7-8 years ago. I'm embarrassed looking at that picture. Actually, funny enough, last night I saw a picture from earlier on this year, from the 7th of January, which was the night before I sent a message out going, right, I'm going to change. I went for a meal with some friends on the 7th of January. I just happened to see that picture last night. I can't believe I look like that. And it's embarrassing that I look back at that now. I'm embarrassed about I let myself get there, but I'm also dead kind of proud. I'm not someone who massively likes to blow my own trumpet, or I don't feel too much pride. I think when you're overweight, probably that's the thing, right? You don't feel proud of yourself. Whereas now I actually do feel a little bit like, you know what, you've done all right this year. So that's a big thing as well.
So self-confidence has definitely improved then, you say?
Yeah. I actually go out and I feel like, another strange thing, being able to walk around a shopping centre or whatever and know that I can walk into any shop and there'll be something in there that fits me.
Yeah.
That was definitely not a thing before. It was always like, oh, you know, if I go into River Island or next, they probably won't have it in my size.
Yeah,
I'll have to
that's
worry
so
about
true. That, and that's kind of one of the things that you probably don't immediately think of, but it's little things like that that really sort of kind of make a difference. The things that I'd noticed, my sleep quality got better. I don't know about you. Have you found your sleep quality?
Oh, there's a question. I've always had sleep issues, to be fair, even when I was a lot thinner. So I don't sleep very well. It probably has improved a bit. What definitely has changed is that I had sleep apnea right when I was big, and that isn't a thing now. So I don't snore, so the underlying health implications of that, I think, are probably pretty huge. But for me personally, I still have quite a few sleep issues, but I think that's a completely different thing. So I don't sleep well, but I do definitely sleep a lot better than I used to.
Yeah, that's good. And that, yes, for me, that was the one that changed. It was my partner Annie told me that I snored like a steam train prior to losing the weight, and partly that was the weight, partly that was alcohol, which is what we kind of worked out because we went on holiday not so long ago, and back on the beer and that I was snoring again. But even when I didn't drink, when I was that bigger, I did still snore, and then. So my sleep quality wasn't as good. It was made worse by Annie sort of waking me up in the middle of the night saying, "Mark, stop snoring." And so it was kind of like a vicious circle. So yeah, no, it's cool to sort of hear that. Can I just ask your relationship with food, mate?
You know, when you are in that negative mindset, so thinking 12, 13 months ago for you now, we have a real emotional relationship with food, right? Fast forward this time on, do you enjoy your food just as much?
Yeah, actually, that's a really important part of my journey, I think, is that going back to what we were saying before about different things work for different people, right? I never restricted myself from anything. So part of why me personally, I kind of prefer the keto, Atkins, low carb route is that I found it levels off your blood sugar, right? So you don't get the kind of huge drive to go and snack on loads of cakes or whatever. So that works well for me. But in all of the dieting, I don't even want to call it dieting, but in all of the change of lifestyle I've done this year, I've still gone and done whatever I want. So if I want to go and have a cake, I've gone and had a cake. And so I still enjoy food. It's just as you get further into the journey, the things that you're reaching out for naturally change. I remember saying to one of my friends actually a few months ago, he said, "Oh, how is it different for you?" And one of the things I said is, one of the big differences is I remember telling him that I was in Marks and Spencer's walking past their like bakery section with all the cakes and all that kind of stuff. And I just didn't want anything. And that was a massive change for me. It's not a switch you can flick necessarily, but having gone through the way I've done it for me, at some point, I kind of stopped wanting that stuff. That said, I've still had a semi-strange obsession with eating cinnamon buns. So what? It's fine. Like, it's true what people say, right? Everything in moderation. But the reason why we all got big is because we really struggled with that moderation.
Yeah.
But yeah, yes, I enjoy what I eat. What I eat is completely different to what I was eating before. Say completely different. A lot of the bad foods have been cut out. I could eat better, but I don't deprive myself of anything. And I think that's a key thing for me that I'd put across to people. Part of why I think I've done well this year is I didn't deprive myself of anything, because I think if I did and said, right, I absolutely can't eat this, that, or the other, again, I don't think I'd have succeeded. So having that ability to go, I'm going to have a bar of chocolate, it's fine. But just doing it in a more measured way. So yeah, I don't.
Bar of chocolate.
Eating's still pleasurable. It's fine. I still enjoy it. It's just a different thing than it used to be.
Okay. And so what would be a go-to meal now for you, Chris? What kind of things would you like to eat? So tell me your favourite
I still eat way too much cheese, like phenomenal amount of cheese, which can't be healthy. And I'm sure if we had a nutritionist in, they go, "Oh, you need to improve your diet." And they won't be wrong. But it's just compared to where I was before, I've allowed myself to do that. So cheese is a bit of a sort of bad food that I eat. But generally, what am I eating? So just a lot more sort of protein-based meals. So my protein intake will be a lot higher. I have started to reintroduce some carbs. So, because to be honest, as my exercise level increased and I was having almost no carbs, I did begin occasionally to get a bit dizzy and lightheaded. And I thought, I'm not fueling my body correctly. That's going to be able to let me go and do a Tough Mudder if I'm never touching any carbs. So I do have some carbs, but they're still pretty limited, to be honest. So I don't have enough vegetables, if I'm honest. So it's very kind of meat orientated. More fruit, actually. So if I'm trying to snack on stuff, obviously they've got sugars in. So, I didn't have them early on because I was trying to do almost no sugar. But I do eat late at night still, not a good habit. But I try and have things like strawberries. I've eaten so many strawberries this year, it's crazy. But that's much better than eating a whole load of chocolate, I guess. So
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your go-to food, mate? Like when we're healthy eating at the moment, me and my wife, and I love like a homemade curry. So you can throw loads of vegetables in that. You can put loads of protein in it. What's your sort of go-to?
What I've enjoyed doing, one thing I enjoy cooking, I'm probably going to do it again tonight, do it in a big batch, is basic sort of like a bolognese ragu type thing. So mince, but I just make it with absolutely loads of vegetables. And then I just have that. I don't have it with pasta or anything. I just have the actual sort of mince stuff. It is shed loads of veg in. So I stick like mushrooms, onions, just anything, carrots, anything that's in the fridge or in the freezer. And that's worked well for me. And then I just portion it out. So it's so easy. I can just go to the freezer. This was actually my meal last night. Go to the freezer, dig one out, stick it in the microwave for a few minutes, and you've got something that's ready and healthy and lots of veg in it, low in sugars and carbs and stuff. So, but yeah, anything that anyone can find that works for them, that's the key thing, right? It doesn't, just because that was work for me, or, you've done a sort of healthy curry, great. Other people might hate that, but there's going to be something out there that you can get to work for you. That doesn't have to be a lettuce, or, if you hate lettuce like I do, don't feel forced to eat it. Go and find something else that works.
Brilliant, cool. And so what's your plan to keep the weight off now, Chris?
Yeah, so emotion, that kind of self-blackmail of constantly having running things to do. Well, I don't really want to embarrass myself, so I've got to get round a half marathon, right? Will I get round without and jog it all in one go? I don't know, but it's a target. So, but just getting round will be an achievement. If I can get round and run it all, I'd be super proud of myself. So that's going to be a motivating factor. I've still got my mate's wedding, still months away. So set myself that goal of losing 18 kilos in 15 months and managed to lose 28 kilos in 7 months, which is, I couldn't have possibly thought I'd do that. So, but that's still a thing. I'm still fearing that photograph of me looking huge at his wedding. So those two things, the half marathon's March, his wedding is April. So that should keep me going for at least the next 6 months. And then once we're through that, I'll have to find something else to give me a reason to not sit on the sofa and stuff myself with gold bars. Do you remember gold bars? I used to love them as a kid.
Oh yeah, I like the gold
so
bar.
Small. They're so small.
They've got smaller. They all have these days. I had a wagon wheel a few weeks back. Jeez, they are tiny now compared to what we had as kids, aren't they?
Well, that's and they become so easy to eat multiple. Well, yeah, right. That's gold bars. So yeah. Anyway, so just to avoid doing all of those things and just keeping motivated with events, and that's what I have to do. Because honestly, over the years, if it's just I'll do it for yourself, that's never been enough for me. There's got to be something else. There's got to be an event. There's got to be a challenge that I'm doing that's going to be right. Okay, that's the purpose for it. That's just me. For other people, it might be, they might be able to motivate themselves, but I just failed over that for about 25 years.
Yeah. Chris, I think that's been brilliant, mate. You're officially a big fella's loser. So well done, mate. It's a great achievement, and it sounds like you keep going as you are, mate. And it sounds like I don't want to talk out of hand. It sounds like you sort of cracked it a bit, and it sounds like you've really got your head in the right place. So well done. I think that's a hell of an achievement, to be honest.
I appreciate it. Can I just say one thing at the end, though? Actually, I kind of think, I don't know what you guys think, but I think there's a bit of a parallel with alcohol's never been a thing for me, right? I've never had a problem with it. But you know, people who are alcoholics and they recover and they still say that, no, I'm alcoholic, but I just choose not to drink, right? I'm still an alcoholic. I kind of see a parallel with that. So you say I've cracked it. I don't quite see it like that, because I think as soon as, if I think that, that's probably the day where I start risk going back down towards where I was before, right? So there is a consciousness to it of ensuring that I know I'm predisposed a bit to liking all the sugary foods and being quite lazy. So constantly bearing that in mind, and otherwise, if I don't and take it for granted and think I've done it, I worry that I'll just start that slippery slope again.
No, it's a good point, I think. And I think certainly for me, and in my time, I've had a bit of an unhealthy relationship with food. And like in moments of stress and difficulty, the go-to is go and eat something. I always remember when early on in my career, I got fired from a job. It was a sales job. It wasn't very good. Rightly got sacked. But I remember going to see the boss, sitting in the office, and it's like, right, this is it. You're gone. And then the first thing I did was I went to McDonald's at like 3:00 in the afternoon and had a Big Mac and a large shake and everything. And that was just my way of dealing with it. And this thing like that made it an unhealthy, realise you got an unhealthy relationship with food. And so I do think, like you said, you've got to stay mindful and don't think that you've just got this all sewn up. Like I said, it's so easy to fall back into old habits, and you'll be then back to square one. And so I like what you said there, Chris. Have a goal and have an event, something to focus your mind and effort on, not just about yourself, but something for the outside world. Maybe that, okay, I'm going to run this half marathon, or I'm going to do this tough mudder. Those things I think help, and it just keeps you motivated to go along. So yeah, no, it's a good point. A lot what you say there. Awesome. Well, it's been great having you on, Chris. We really appreciate you taking the time. Yeah, we will probably see your progress updates, and when this goes out, we'll probably send you a link to your fundraiser for your half marathon. We'll put that out on the episodes. If people want to donate, they can. And yeah, best of luck with it, mate.
Okay, so yeah, mate, that was Chris. Chris, thanks for coming on, mate. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a great story. Like I said, he's a mate of mine, so it's really good to see him lose the weight and sort of follow it in a similar time to me. And like I said, I've done the Cambridge weight plan. Chris has really done it by it's diet and exercise. It's the old-fashioned method, you could probably argue. But you got to take your hat off to him. He's eating less sugary foods. I think that was his main thing. He likes his cheese. He likes his meat, and it's working for him. I think that's the main thing. And he's got into his running, which is great to see. And like I said, like me, I'm not a runner. Neither was he, but he's found the love for it, and it's working well for him.
Yeah, what I like the fact that he's taking the pressure off it a little bit, and he's, like we've said, he's not making drastic life changes and expecting to stick to it forever. He's making small changes that are having a big difference. He's more active. He's eating better. He's cutting out the crap, but he's not putting that pressure on himself. And I think that's really quite important. So good for him, mate.
And absolutely. And I think what I like about how he's keeping it going and looking ahead to be more sustainable going forward is that he has got sort of running events coming up. He's got his friend's wedding, which was the catalyst for him to make a start. And I guess he's almost driven by a bit of embarrassment or a bit of shame, maybe. And like I said, he'd been to a previous wedding and was a big fella back then, and he was a bit embarrassed by that. And so maybe that's haunted him a bit, I guess. And so he's got this next one coming up, and that's kind of what's driving him on. But past that, he says he wants to carry on doing sort of other sort of running events, and yeah, credit to him, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Well done, Chris. You are a loser of Big Fellas Podcast, so Congratulations, and if you've enjoyed the episode, be sure to let us know on social media. Reach out to us, Mark or Darren.
Yeah.
Visit our website, bigfellaspodcast.com, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
See you on the next one, guys. Cheers.